Then ride with me in my foul life.
Foul Life audience, what's up? Back at you. This is Chad. Another episode of the Foul Life podcast. Today's episode, as always, brought to you by our friends at Gerber Gear. Stay sharp, America. Get your knife out, cut some meat off of the bone, build a boat blind, get some concealment on one of those pea fields. I would say in Saskatchewan, but we're not allowed to go there this year. So maybe we will do it on a cornfield in North Dakota or some sugar beets right outside of Billings, Montana on the Yellowstone River. I love hunting mallard ducks up there. I hope you guys are having a great kickoff to the season. Today's episode of the podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Nutrien Ag Solutions. This is how America grows. This is what farmers are all about. Ranchers are all about sustainability, cropland, America. We're starting up a combine. I often think about how many farmers are starting their days when we're still cuddled up with our pillows at 4 a.m, 5 a.m. out here west. They've already been working for 2-3 hours in Canada, and it just gets me so fired up to know that they are so dedicated to taking care of that land and manicuring it and making sure that it produces the crops and the yields that they need to not just make revenue streams for their families, but to produce the food that America depends on. So please check out Nutrien Ag Solutions and all of their products and services and what they provide to not just us as human beings in consumption of our food, but to wildlife of all different populations and variety. My guest today is, I think you kind of are in charge of North American Operations, Mr. Jeff Tarsi, VP of North American Operations. Is there a better way that I can say what you are to the Nutrien Ag Solutions culture and infrastructure?
No, I think you did a pretty good job on a day-to-day basis. I am responsible for all of our retail operations in North America, and so obviously that's the U.S. And then our operations in Canada, which from a retail perspective are primarily in Western Canada. And so, basically you got probably 250 roughly retail locations in Canada and just over 900 in the U.S. So we got a lot going on a daily basis, and it's a lot to look over on any given day.
Do you come from a farming background yourself, or I assume your education was in some type of agricultural background that a lot of our campuses across the country do offer, but do you come from any actual American farming roots yourself?
I do. The listeners can probably detect I have a very thick Southern accent, kind of a little bit of a story behind that. I grew up in Cleveland, Mississippi, which is in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, and about 2 hours south of Memphis. I'm the grandson of Italian immigrants, however, and so we grew up with around a couple 200 Italian families there in the Mississippi Delta. We grew up. Both of my grandparents farmed, and my dad farmed, and my grandmother's owned dry goods stores in that area, and I love to farm. And I went to college. I majored in agricultural economics at Mississippi State University. I had no intent getting out of college of doing anything but farming. And I graduated in 1985. And just looking at you on screen, you're probably not old enough to remember 1985. It was a horrendous time in agriculture, probably as bad as since the Depression. And commodity prices were horrible. And there was a grain embargo on rice. I grew up on a rice, cotton, and soybean farm in Mississippi. And so when I graduated and I studied ag business, ag economics, I did the math myself, and I just didn't feel like it was a place for me on the farm. And I got out and I started my career with BASF, and I spent the first 11 to 12 years with those guys before getting into the retail input side of the business. So my roots are in agriculture my whole life. I still miss farming. Every spring when the tillage starts, I get that desire to want to be out. And I do absolutely the next best thing to farming with the company that I work with today with Nutrien Ag Solutions and being a input and solution provider for our customers.
And when you hear somebody say the words solution, coming up with solutions, problem solving. That's one of the main key parts of the Nutrien business model, is being able to help that family solve a problem or make something easier, make something more profitable, make something more productive. When you start talking about years like 1985, and I was young, but I was alive, and I do remember a lot of the good parts of the 80s. You hear a lot of things, and President Reagan's in office, and you also have a huge, there's a lot of stuff going on worldwide. You very rarely hear anybody talk about that was a terrible agricultural year for America. With that being said, Jeff, my dad was a union plumber. When it came time to be laid off as a union plumber, our family suffered. The income goes away, unemployment starts. It was a hard time for our family, right? As you encountered your grandfathers and your dad and all of the customers that you talk to on a daily basis, how much does stress play a role in the mindset of an American farmer? You got to have rain. You got to have government sustainability. You got to have some, stuff help, and you got to have recovery programs. Do these men that seem so free-willed and so just, hey, we're living off the land and we're relaxed and we love petting our dogs and drinking our coffee with our wives in the morning on a big porch, there's got to be a lot of stress that comes with it, isn't there?
Well, there is, and I always say that number one, we're very fortunate in North America. I think that we have that our customers and our farmers are just tremendous at what they do. They really do an exceptional job on maximizing their yields and their efforts on a per acre basis with it. But look, there's a lot of stress that comes with that. And I always say that farmers are internal optimists. And look, I've had the luxury of working all over the world when it pertains to agriculture. I've spent a lot of time in South America, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Australia, New Zealand. And, it doesn't matter what geography you come from. A farmer is a farmer. When you get the accent's different, as mine is different from when you go into the Midwest, and it's different when you go to Australia. But how those guys think and their internal optimism is always the same, and how they handle stress. And look, agriculture is a stressful business, and I don't make light of that at all. But like you said when you started the show, these guys start their mornings before daylight a lot of months of the year, and they shut their evenings off after dark a lot of months of the year, and they just put so much work and blood, sweat, and tears into what they do. But the biggest thing is the pride they take in what they do. If you think about it, what more fulfilling job can you have than when you wake up every morning and you go to work, and it's your responsibility to help feed all the human beings on this planet. And I just can't think of anything more fulfilling. And I feel that way in what I do. And I think that my organization feels the same way, that we play a big role in assisting that producer with helping him to produce his yields and to solve his problems and create the solutions that he's looking for to meet the demands that we have for food and for food and fiber and all the different things out there that are involved with agriculture. But yeah, there's a lot of stress. And think about this. I use this quite a bit when I'm talking to people outside of our industry. And I'll use a Southern team, but I say, we're not the Dallas Cowboys. We do not have a retractable roof over our business. Our roof is open 24/7. And we get up in the morning, an hour later from what we start with, there can be drastic differences, and most days there are. And so there's so many variables that our customers have to deal with, and so many variables that my team has to deal with in providing those solutions with it. It's truly a unique business. I think you would agree, being an outdoorsman and such, just how unique it is and what a challenge it is.
I can see, like, that's the word that comes to mind the most is challenge. And where I want to go with that, Mr. Jeff, is we duck hunt. which has a huge bit, we depend on farmers just in the nature of our business, in the nature of our livelihood, in the nature of our culture, and what we do to see mallard ducks or Canada geese do what they do, or speckle bellies over a rice field in the Sacramento Delta, or anything that we get to do. Farming plays a role in a whitetail and a turkey and a rodent, a predator and a duck and a goose. It's crazy the challenges that come with getting that crop to the way it is. And it seems like evolution has become so evident in farming, I'd say in my opinion, over the last decade, with the way combines work now and the way planting goes and the way that the harvest rolls and the way that nut guys can get the almonds and the walnuts off the trees now. It's crazy compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago. In your opinion, Jeff, when you go and you talk to a duck hunter, tradition is everything. It's hard sometimes to break that oilskin jacket, that oilcloth jacket that grandpa wore. I don't need all that new age camouflage and those breathable waders. I'm going like I did. It's like traditional. The sense of tradition is everything in waterfowling. A lot of people look down on the spinning wing decoy because they don't think that it's a traditional sense of getting ducks in close. In farming, have you encountered that a lot, to where a lot of these families are so old school and they're so traditional in the generational, because farming is so generational, probably more so than any other business venture in the world, passed down from generation to generation. Have you seen it as this younger generation comes in, that they're like just ready to go with this new age technology and the software and all of these implementations that a company like Nutrien Ag Solutions specializes in?
Man, look, it's amazing when you look at the demographics and what the adoption is for this new technology. First of all, there are very few people farming today that aren't using advanced technology. And I tell people this, I think that agriculture is one of the most advanced technologies in the world as far as how it all happens today and how it comes together. And, just things like, that 10 or 15 years ago, we could not have even imagined that, you don't have to steer a tractor today. And that we can take global satellite imagery and either determine where pests are or predict and use a predictive model to determine when they're going to occur with it. But the young, and I tell people this a lot as I go around the country in North America and when I travel globally, I think this technology, one of the brightest spots for this technology is the fact that it has attracted young people back to the farm. If I thought about it when I was on the farm, I could have had an idea of how we were planting cotton, and the depth that you planted that seed was very critical. And I can remember that it didn't matter what I thought. It was going to be 2 joints on your index finger was how deep you were going to plant that cotton seedling, because that's what my grandfather did. And that traditionally, that's just the way you did it. And today, it changes by the hour because there's so many analytics that we can use. That might have been fine that we planted it two joints on your index finger on a sandy loam soil. But when we got to the heavy end of the field, that depth needed to be adjusted, and it needed to be planted deeper because it wasn't as much moisture. Well, today our equipment will adjust on the fly, on the go. You can plant a seed one depth on one end of the row. You can plant it 5 different depths on the same row if you've got it properly identified and you've mapped that field accordingly and such. And so this technology has attracted younger people back to the farm. But I'm going to tell you, it just doesn't stop with young people. Look, a lot of my friends, my best friends today, all farm, and back in the area that I'm from. And look, what they use their iPhone for today, and most of them have a tablet mounted on their dash, where they're watching where their tractors are running. They're looking at the miles per hour they're running. They're looking at the depth if they're plowing, or if they're seeding, or if they're harvesting, the speed and how much yield is coming in at any point in time. It's absolutely amazing, and it's got it where we can be so much more predictive on what our outcomes are going to be. But I'll also end this piece of it by saying this. You always say, is it art or science? Okay. science plays a big part of it today, and analytics plays a big part of it. But there's still in agriculture, there's a part of it that's art. There's a part of it of following your gut, and that's where those instincts come from, and they're passed down, over generations and such with it. So, and I think that part will always play some part. It sure makes it fun.
Do you often think about on a personal level of where I get to travel? And you mentioned Uruguay, Paraguay, all over Argentina. I've hunted all over that area. Peru, Chile. Obviously, you can't hunt in Brazil. Very cool place though in South America. But continental United States, the Canadian provinces, the one consistent attribute, personality trait that I've learned through my association with what you do, Jeff, and what you in the customer base that Nutrien Ag Solutions specializes in is the word modesty. Being modest. As farmers, you could do a lot of things that would take away from the end goal. You could not manage your time right. You could be stingy because you're your own boss. You could go do whatever you want. You yield something very high on one year, like almonds last year compared to this year. Somebody goes out and buys a yacht and goes out to the Mediterranean and just sells all over Italy and the Amalfi Coast. And they're like, oh man, this is living. I don't see that a lot amongst farmers. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't that fair share that have earned it and they're doing some of that, but does modesty play a huge role in being able to stay rooted and no pun intended, but staying grounded, staying rooted, staying part of that land? And one of the best quotes I ever heard was by an Iowa farmer named Don Brothers, who we've showcased in our TV show several times. He said, this isn't my land. This isn't my family's land. I just get to work it for a while and do the best that I can with it and then put it up on the shelf for the next guy. When that next guy comes in there, I want him or her or that family to know this land was taken care of the right way. That is so humble and so modest that this isn't even my land. This is God's creation, and I was just picked to work it. Do you see that consistently across the board with your customers and family?
Yes, I do. On a large scale, I do. And look, you have to stay modest in agriculture because you can be humbled so quickly. Just when you think you know it all, or just when you think you really understand how something works, something can happen, might not be of any control whatsoever. And most times it's not within your control. It could be a trade agreement. It could be a La Nina weather pattern forming. We dealt with over 10 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico this year. Since I've been in this business, I've 35 years in this business. I've never encountered that. And those guys that still had crops out there, there's nothing they did wrong. But, where they're getting continually pounded, and we're hit down through Alabama this last cotton left to pick, and a lot of it got damaged out there. You can get humbled so quickly. And so it just doesn't allow for you to be anything but modest. But I think that growers and producers just by nature are that way, because they realize all the things that have to go right in a given year for it all to work out. And again, it's there's a lot of years that going out to Vegas and throwing dice on the crap table might be better odds. If you're one of those guys that had cotton crops sitting down in Alabama this year, that very well might be the case. Each time you get 4 or 5 hurricanes in one distinct area there. But I think you have to stay grounded that way. And again, I mentioned the commitment and the responsibility that growers feel. And that's not just to produce the yields that they produce. That's to also take care and preserve our planet. I mean, you just don't find any greater conservationists out there. And some people sometimes might look at that differently, but there are no greater conservationists. And you know that if you're using those lands to waterfowl hunt on and things like that, that's all conservation. It takes a lot of work to set those things up like that. And, if I look at how cover crops have come back into importance now and the part they play on soil health and the things they do as well for wildlife, turkeys and quail and things like that. It's amazing to me. It's a big buy-in that these guys have, and they do all want to leave this place in a better place than they found it in. And we want in Nutrien Ag Solutions, we want to be a big part of that as well. We feel like we carry that responsibility to help educate our customer and the growers on what are the best things we can do to preserve the soil and to preserve the land and preserve nature and the wildlife that's associated with it. It's very important to us.
I can't imagine a better college course or a better even elementary, middle school, or high school course that just would take a semester or two based on what you just said the last 2 minutes. If you think about the approach that farmers take with modesty and humility and risk and savings and saving something for a rainy day and love of the land and passion, and then you have the absolute self-starting and driven and all of the things that go into the entrepreneurial spirit of America without ever taking a business course. In your experiences, Mr. Jeff, do you see, and where I see a huge difference in kids today of the way they're being educated, the way that they're not playing outside. Like if I wasn't catching horny toads or blueberry lizards or catching a trout, my day wasn't complete. If I wasn't skinning my knee on the dirt or stacking firewood or splitting logs with Dad, something was wrong. We were never, ever inside. And that's changed today. Has it changed in the farming community, in your opinion, the way that farming families are raising their kids for the next generation? Or is that one area of our community and our society in this country that we can depend on, that things are still staying real and still staying relative to the way they're supposed to be, in my opinion?
I think that's probably one area that you don't see that change in, because look, the work is never work is never completed on a farm. There's not any hour of any day that there's not something you can be doing on a farm. And so look, labor that's one of the problem areas with our growers today. I think a lot of our growers would even maybe choose to be even bigger than they are in some cases if it wasn't for the difficulty in finding labor. So a lot of these families are using their kids. There's no gender preferences on a farm, nor in our business. Husbands, wives, daughters, it doesn't make any difference. Everyone pitches in and works on these farms. And look, I'm guilty of the same thing when I think about it. I grew up on a farm and both grandparents farming. When the time I was 8 years old, I was in the field all day. And I've always told people this: the greatest gift that my father ever gave me, and he's deceased now, but the greatest thing he ever gave me was he taught me how to work. And I mean, he taught me how to work hard. And every job I ever had since I left the farm was the easiest job I ever had. And so it's that's the great thing. And look, for like my kids and me being raised that way, but in the career I had in being raised in the city and not on the farm, I didn't get to expose my kids to that kind of work. I wanted to, but I didn't get to. And but I talked about it an awful lot. And my wife and I set examples, for working hard, because we're two very hard-working people on it. But if I'd had my preference, I would have much rather have taught them those things out on the farm, because you can use them. That school of hard knocks, that can be used in any industry. I don't care which industry it is on it.
Do you think that your kids would have had an easier time understanding? Because my pops always said the same thing. He's deceased too now, but he always said, you're put on this earth to work. Your work ethic is what you got. Yes, family is everything, but you got to provide for that family, and you cannot provide for them the correct way without a work ethic. And the older I get and the more mature I get, Mr. Jeff, I see it more and more every day of what work ethic means and how easy that is to get away today when we have an instant babysitter with this tablet, or we can get away and you go on the road for a certain amount of time and you have your wife there raising the kids. My question is, would it have been easier to raise them work ethic wise, to instill that on the farm? Do you think it was more difficult when you got away from the farm? You still work your butt off every day for Nutrien and you're growing this livelihood for your family and taking care of them. But did you guys have a more difficult time instilling work ethic based on just being able to tell stories of the farm and not actually being on the farm?
I think so is getting because the best live example is being out in a rice paddy in July, and it's 100 degrees and there's no air blowing and water. It's hard to explain that to somebody with a shovel on your back. It's really hard to explain to somebody what that's like and how you make it through each day like that. So to be able to replicate that is difficult. But again, if you set the right examples and look, I don't work hard physically these days, not like I did on a farm. I have to work hard mentally, probably even more so. But being able to set that example is so important with these kids, and I think that and storytelling about life on the farm. If I look today, my oldest daughter Elizabeth's finishing her last year of residency as an OBGYN, and Elizabeth works 80 to 90 hours a week. So I got no qualm that she knows how to work hard. And not only does she work hard, but she works under a lot of stress. And that makes me really proud. And then my middle child is an architect in Nashville today. And he's working and taking his test to be licensed. And I see what he puts into that. And again, I think the examples you set by both myself and my wife, and she came from a hardworking family as well. You just can't put a value on that, in my opinion. And you have to work. You have to work at finding things. That's what I told somebody. What do I do? Tell them to go mow the yard 4 times today to kind of replicate what a day on the farm is like on it. It is tough on it. But I'll say this for the younger generation as well, is a lot of them know how to work a lot smarter than I do. In other words, I might put 10 hours to do something that it might not take them but 6 hours to do, because in their culture today and the tools that they have access to, they might figure out a way to do it better than I did. And my kids tell me that all the time on it. And I said, look, I'm proud for you if you figured that out. I'm really tickled for you, but you do have to. I'll tell you this: I was not a great student in high school, not good at all, and because all I wanted to do was farm every day. In college, I made a little bit better grades, but nothing that you would want to write home about. But I can tell you this: very rarely in my 35-year career did I ever work next to somebody that I didn't think I could outwork. At least work as hard as. And I always felt like that was my advantage. That's what advantage I felt like I had. It wasn't brains on it, but it was just being able to work hard and knowing what working hard meant on it. And so yeah, and that's still today, even with all of this technology, that's still the backbone of the farming operations, whether you're in Canada or the United States, again, down in Argentina, Brazil, or Australia. Those guys work hard every day, sun up, sundown on it. They just do it in a bigger way today than they used to.
So when a duck hunter is traveling through Saskatchewan or Alberta or Manitoba, or if a city dweller is driving behind a truck that has a sticker, a window decal on the back of it that says the Nutrien with the green and the blacks and the whites, if that duck hunter is driving through the prairie lands of Canada and he sees a sign of a retail location or some of your offices, like I have so many times, and they've even become more evident since I formed this relationship and partnership with Nutrien Ag Solutions, I stop in, I say hello, I drop off hats. But my question, Mr. Jeff, is that guy that might not be as ingrained or engulfed in the farming community or agriculture or crops or hunting or outdoors or sustainability or anything that goes into your daily mindset. What does that word mean? What does that brand mean? What would they look at a Wikipedia definition of Nutrien Ag Solutions? And within your answer, does work ethic play a vital role in that definition, that you expect and demand a work ethic out of everybody that signs on that line to become a part of that business and a part of that culture and brand of Nutrien as an employee?
Yeah, I mean, when I see that name, I think, and of course, I'm prejudiced when it comes to this, but I think of best in class in what we do on a day-to-day basis, and that's serve our customer with his needs, both from an input standpoint, an information standpoint, to strive to get the most out of the land that can be gained in order to produce cropping and yields that go out to feed the world. And it's very important to us as we go through that process and create those solutions that we're doing it in a very responsible and a sustainable way, both for our customer and those that inhabit our planet on a day-to-day basis. The other thing I think that a lot of people maybe not would associate is all the different parts of our platform that we have. You know, we provide seed, we provide crop chemistry, we provide nutrient, NP and K, and micronutrients that it takes to balance these soils out to produce these crops. We provide application of these products, whether it's to crop chemistry or whether it's the nutrients that are being applied. We provide financing with Nutrien Financial Services for these growers. That's one of the most difficult parts of the farming operation today, is being able to secure financing. When I was a kid, the local banks did all of that financing. Today, that's not the case, and Nutrien provides a large part of that financing with that grower. And then it also it's when you look at our digital portal that we have, and our customers today are our agronomists. They can order off of their phones. They can look up vital information as it relates to that acre of soil or to 3 components or parts of that acre of the soil to help make faster decisions on what seed we're going to plant, what germplasm, what maturities, what trait packages that we're going to plant that will maximize yield and profit on a per acre basis. It's all about ROI. And I've always said this to our people. I say it on a daily basis. If we make our customers successful, we'll be successful in what we're doing. And let me tell you, our hours run right with the growers. They run right with the growers. You know, we're today, you know, as I speak across the Midwest, we've got some actually favorable weather across those corn producing states. And we're applying P and K, potash and phosphates. We're knifing in anhydrous ammonia today. And we'll go, some of those rigs we might run all night tonight, is because we got a very narrow window normally to get this stuff done with it. And so we play a vital part. So when they look, I'd rather them look at a crop and look at what's taking place on that field, and then associating that with Nutrien Ag Solutions and their ability to provide those inputs for that grower so that he can then take it and produce what you're seeing visibly from a cropping standpoint.
And then as you take it a step further of the services and products that Nutrien provides, and I'm talking like some really like in-depth things of farm management. That's what I see on it, is like there is such an advantage. And I do want to get into the word competition in a second, but a step further, Mr. Jeff Tarsi, is what does that crop actually become that we may take for granted on a daily basis, from a hamburger bun to a Wendy's French fry to a Budweiser beer to a Jack Daniel's highball to the best filet mignon that you could eat, raised on the best, whether it was corn or wheat or, you know, these different high protein diets that our beef is being fed. Deer farms now, deer antler growth is all based on nutrition of these crops and these these different mixtures and these proprietary blends. Think about, as Americans only, just this continental United States, take Hawaii and Alaska out of it even, we're talking 48 states continentally here. What do we take for granted on a daily basis as we drive by these farmlands and these rural areas of what they are actually doing? It's almost like my whole view on 18-wheelers that, oh my gosh, they just take up the road and they take forever to climb an incline. And I'm like, no, they are literally moving America for us. This is how our supply and demand chain is routed through our areas of this country. I try to look at everything in a way like that of what is that cropland and that farm actually doing in the big picture. We don't go anywhere in this country without farming and without ranching. And that's kind of the point of what I want to be a small voice of, Mr. Jeff, is like, look at what farmers are doing daily to ensure that our families are taken care of. It's easy to take that for granted. Would you agree?
It is. And look, when I think about it, the things I think we take for granted, I know we take for granted, is that, number one, we got one of the safest food supplies in the world. Okay. So when you're looking out and driving by and analyzing what these guys are doing, you can go to bed at night and you can feel comfortable that you have a very, very safe food chain. And whether you're feeding your infants on up to you're at the end of life from an age standpoint on it, you've got safe and good food that's high in protein with it. While those crops are growing, those crops are sequestering carbon, which is a big, phrase word today is carbon sequestration. And so those crops are capturing carbon out of the air, which is making for a more green environment and a better and more suitable planet. I always think when you step out the shower in the morning, what's the first thing you grab? A towel, okay? Or when you step in a shower, what's the first thing you grab? A wash rag. Well, there's about a 98% chance that that's made out of cotton. It's made out of fiber. When you get dried off and you get dressed and you pull a pair of blue jeans on, that's made out of cotton on it. And so I like to spend time, when I have time, I like to go into the school systems and I like to educate the kids. And I don't mean high school kids. You got to start early with these kids and some of these STEM programs, first, second, third grade. And so because these kids today, because such a small part of our population now has ever come from a farm, most people don't even realize where their food came from. Most people don't realize those blue jeans, what went in that blue jean to produce it. And so I love going to schools and telling that story. If you look at California, and you look at some of the counties out there in California, they grow over 270 crops in one county. Just amazing. And how much of our food comes from that state, whether it's your almonds, your peaches, your pears, your apples, your grapes, and those type of things.
Your rice, your olives. I mean, it's nonstop.
Onions, tomatoes, olives, like you just said. It's absolutely amazing what's produced and the technology that's used over there to produce those crops. But we do, I think we probably, look, they've always come, I don't want to say the word they come easy for us, but if we compare it to some other countries, it's come pretty easy for us to clothe ourselves and to feed ourselves. And so we likely do take it a bit for granted in how all of that occurs, and just what goes into make it. When you walk in your grocery store and you see that fresh produce, do you realize that just in some instances, just 24 hours ago, it was in the field? That's how fresh it is. And that's how great the technology is. Once it's harvested, they flash freeze it or chill it and get it straight to the grocery store. All those strawberries now year round that we can enjoy and that are good for our diets, as well on it. Just amazing, really amazing when you stop and think about it.
Personally, Mr. Jeff Tarsi, do you experience the peaks and the valleys with all of your farming friends and customers that personally? Like, for example, highest yields in a long, long time in almonds and almonds, whatever you want to call them. You got to get it right in a lot of instances when you're out in California.
Yeah.
Highest yield in lots of years, but lowest buy price in a lots of years. Do you feel that hit with them? How personal do you wear it on the chin? And then how personal do you raise your hands in celebration and toast that cold beer at the local bar, which is a great part of the farming community of being able to go to a bake sale or a fair or a parade back pre-COVID this year. And hopefully we're back there sooner than later. But how much do you personally wear it and take it on the chin with the highs and the lows?
From me personally, I wear it. Sometimes my family tells me I wear it too strong. Okay. And again, I think it goes back to my being raised on a farm and how involved I was in our farm and knowing the stress level when pricing wasn't good or when the weather wasn't cooperating. But look, we wear it every single day. We're with our customers. Sometimes we're with our customers multiple times a day. Look, when they're feeling good, we're feeling good. And when they're not feeling good, we're not feeling good. Look, the last week, I had one friend that he had 3,000 acres of soybeans to get out, and he got hit with 2 hurricanes, and he had to go and put tracks on all 3 of his combines. He went and bought 2 grain buggies that had tracks on them, and he bought a tractor that was a quad track. He probably in one decision, he probably spent $600,000, in order to get his crop out. And look, he cut all night, several nights, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and text him just to see, I want to make sure he was awake on the harvester. And no, we live this, and it's not just our agronomists that are sitting on the ground. I know my management team, we live it on an hourly and daily basis on it, and we want them to do good. We want them to do really, really good, and because it makes the whole world go around. When agriculture is going good, I think the whole world goes around, and it's just a tradition in this country, and it's a tradition that we should take a lot of pride in, because of how skilled that our producers are here on this continent. And I don't think they get enough credit for that a lot of days.
I would agree wholeheartedly. The competitive spirit of how we are raised, of how our country was built, you gotta become a champion. There's no, we don't want to give a participation award. Has been a big talk the last 5 years. You drive by a decoy spread in what I do, and you're always like, man, I wonder what they're doing down the road. Hopefully we look better. Hopefully we're moving better. Hopefully we did better this year than our neighbor did. We want to be able to say that we piled them up more. It doesn't make sense. It's not what we're supposed to be in it for. Is farming, I'm going back to my question on how kids are raised there and work ethic, and that's one place where there's not a lot of change. Is competition play a role? Is it just personal competitiveness between them and their psyche, and they want that land to produce the best they can get it? Or how does Nutrien fit into this? Because you might have the Smiths right here on the corner of the corner of this place in North Dakota or Kansas, and then right down the road you have the Albers family that are growing the same crops. They're both Nutrien customers. Are you a cheerleader for both? Do they meet and shake hands and hope the best for each other? Or is there ever that sense in a farmer's head of like, oh man, my land's going to whip your land's butt this year? I don't see that. Or does that question even make sense?
No, look, and to me, there's not a more personable community than a farming community. And you let somebody get down, and you watch how many pieces of implement show up to help that person get a crop out. And I know of no other industry like that. Now, to be the best at what you're going to do, you got to have a spirit of competition. And our growers are very competitive in my opinion. And I think they do it in fun. I don't think they do it in spite or anything like that. But they're very competitive. And look, I learned from when I first got out of college and got out with BASF and was working on farms and calling on people, walking crops, making recommendations at that time. I learned real quickly that a lot of growers don't want you going to the next farm and telling what they're doing on their farm. And I learned that the hard way one time with a customer, and I never forgot it. But that's their that farm and that crop. That's their work of art. Okay, and they don't want anybody to see their canvas until it's done. In a lot of cases, and now if they want to call each other and share it, that's great. But I think our agronomists would be the same way. You kind of keep what goes on this farm separate than that other farm on it. And again, if they give you permission to talk about what somebody else is doing, then you do that. But you also respect the fact that heck, they got trade secrets on each of these farms. And look, nobody farms the same way. We have customers that are high input farms, and they have to have tremendous yields to support the amount of inputs. And we got some that don't farm to the same input level, and maybe their yield requirements are not as high. And, doesn't mean that they both aren't successful from that standpoint. But we respect all of that. And again, I think every day you get up, if you didn't have anything to compete against, it kind of be hard to get up with that same pizzazz and that same rotor turning as fast as it would turn, or your engine turning as fast as it can turn. I know in our business, look, we got some great competitors out there that we compete against, and I like competing. And I take my hat off when I see one of them do something really good, and I feel really proud the many times a year that I know that we do things in an excellent way. So I don't know any industry that would be different than that. Really don't.
I love it. If I'm a high school principal or a PhD professor at a college business campus, entrepreneurial spirit of America, business, getting ready to go out into the workforce per se, Mr. Jeff, and make our own money now, I ask you to come speak to my classes in high school or college, and maybe even a master's program, an upper level class or program to where they're getting ready to graduate with a PhD or even or a doctorate. What would you say if the question was posed as American money earners, American workforce going out into the world now in real society, out of mom and dad's roof, out from under it? How do we support the American farmer? What are different ways that we can ensure that we are supporting the American farmer? Is there certain things to look for at the mall, at the grocery store? Does it have to say made in America? I don't think it does, because we do sell to overseas with imports and exports and that program. How can we support the American farmer, Mr. Jeff, if you were going to give a speech on that?
I think primarily the biggest thing that most can do is educate themselves on what the American farmer does. That's the part today that's missing out there. Understand the role that he carries, and understand the importance that it plays, and understand some of the regulations that come across. It's a very, very heavy regulated industry today. And not a lot of people understand the regulations that our growers have to work across. So understand the politics of it as well. And when you go to vote, understand what your politicians stand for, and in what way that they support the American farmer as well on that piece of it. But the main thing is just educate yourself to what they do. Look, more than likely, if you're going in a grocery store, you're supporting the American farmer every day. Most of our produce is fresh. Most of it's coming from this country. I like to, I love fried catfish. And if I buy fried catfish, I try to buy it. It's got a label that says U.S. raised catfish on it. And so I do look for those types of things, because I know the care and the time that goes into and how they farm them, and such. But know and teach your kids as well about the role that the American farmer plays, and the importance of agriculture, and the importance of it on our economy. It's huge. That agricultural sector is a huge part of our economy. That's why when we had this outbreak of COVID in March, that everybody, agriculture was deemed an essential business. I mean, look, that's how we feed people. That's how we clothe people. And so we took a lot of pride at Nutrien Ag Solutions that our business was deemed an essential business. And our people on the front lines, I can't think enough that showed up every single day and had to follow vigorous protocols in order to keep themselves safe and to keep our customers safe. And we had to do some things this year that we would have never, ever even thought about doing, and prohibiting people coming into our offices. And we'll have to do that this fall as well, as we see some spikes taking place. But that's all to make sure that we keep our employees that service our customers well. And even more importantly, we keep our customers well so that they can keep doing the things that they're doing out there.
Man, I don't know of a better education process, back to what we talked about also, of what a better way to learn of living off the land and being responsible and taking care of things, to where it's almost like if you get permission on a farmer's land, Mr. Jeff, one of the things that we stress the most, closing gates, leaving the land look better than when we got there, picking up all of your shotgun holes, making sure that everything's put back, no littering, no trash left out there. This is the pride in this. We don't even own this land, but according to the farmers, neither do they, even though it is maybe owned a little bit by the bank still, but it is part of their family heirloom or a generational practice. Just living off the land and being a provider and sustainability, it's so awesome. And to live in that every day and be ingrained in it every day with Nutrien Ag Solutions. I talked to Greg Mendes and Joe LeBeau out in California in your Hamilton City office, and I'm like, man, every day you get to go out and pat a farmer on the back and give him a cold Pepsi or a cold Coca-Cola Classic. Maybe after 5 p.m. you give him something else if it's that time. But they got coolers in their truck, and they got hats and decals and bumper stickers and so much lunchbox stickers and hard hat stickers and just everything of this prideful culture of Nutrien Ag Solutions. And I can just picture it. And what I want you to tell me now is kind of on a personal level. Harvest is getting ready to be done in the South, Mississippi Delta. You got the river rats, you got the ducks, you got the geese, you got whitetail, you got turkeys, but you also have the fish fries, and you have what they call crawfish boils. It's into the harvest 2 times a year. Mr. Jeff Tarsi is in charge of this Nutrien Ag Solutions party that's getting ready to be a throwdown for his farming communities. What is a must for these 2 types of dinners, Mr. Jeff? I have a lot of discussions out west here, sir, and nobody's really ever gets to experience a real crawfish boil or a real fish fry. Now, what goes in? Let's start with the crawfish boil. What is in that broil, as far as, you don't have to give me your ingredients of the actual spices unless you want, but what's on that table laid out? What makes it an official Mississippi Delta crawfish boil?
Well, you've got to have a crawfish table to begin with. And a crawfish table is going to be something that's got side panels so the juices don't run off when they're dumped in the middle of the table. It's also got a big hole in the middle of the table that a garbage can sits under. And so when you get finished eating your tail and sucking your head, you put what's left down in that garbage can. So you want to do it in a clean manner so you don't have too big of a mess when you're done. But you start off with generally speaking, a Louisiana raised crawfish. And that crawfish is coming off off of those same customers that we sell rice inputs to. So they raise a rice crop, and then on the rice stubble, the crawfish winter, and that's what they feed off of until the spring when the temperatures get warm enough. Actually, it seems like they start every year earlier now, but some of them start as early as in December now. But January and February, as the temperatures warm up, start catching those crawfish. So you start with your fresh crawfish, and then you got your lemons and your butter and your crab boil and your red cayenne pepper, and then you got to have corn, and you got to have potatoes, and you got to have sausage in that boil as well. And man, it's just a good time, and it's a good way to share with one another. You know, this year, that's part of the toughest thing about 2020 is we haven't been able to gather like that, you know, with our producers, and likely this fall will be the same unless it's, you know, we can really practice social distancing. And again, that's more to try to keep our customers safe. But we'll get over this. We'll get over this era, and we'll be right back where we were. But these crawfish boils are a lot of fun, and on top of that, even more than that, they're damn good to eat. And I know me personally, I can sit down and eat 10 pounds of them without blinking an eye. I know how to peel them. When I first started my career, I started in Louisiana, and my claim to fame down there is I built me a big cooking trailer, and I went around and did crawfish boil for growers for grower meetings. And I'd venture to say that I probably cooked 200,000 pounds of crawfish back in my career as a sales rep in those days with it. But I also cooked a lot of fried catfish, and that's Mississippi raised catfish, but today we raise it in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama does an exceptional job today as well. But good fried catfish, catfish eat corn and soybeans. And one of the only food sources that on a ratio basis, I think gains almost a 1-for-1 ratio. If you feed them a pound, they gain a pound on it. So very efficient in what you feed them. But man, fried catfish and French fries to go with it, and raw onions and hush puppies. Gosh, mighty, I'm hungry just thinking about it.
But, I am too.
And then you look, we have a lot of gatherings when we're able to gather. A lot of gathering with our customers where they bring their wildlife. We cook duck breast and we cook venison. We cook wild hogs. You name it. But that's not just in the South. That's everywhere. I've been to Canada and had some of the finest duck I've ever eaten in my life up there. And someone told me, I said, man, the duck is so tender here. And they say, yeah, it hadn't flown 3,000 miles.
Hasn't used them muscles. I got two questions, or actually three, based on what you just said. One, you mentioned suck the heads. Now, for people that are from where I'm at, they probably don't understand what this means, but I've been around enough Louisianans and Mississippians and Arkansasans and all over the South. I call myself the adopted son of the South because I'm very envious of people like yourself that get to spend every day in the South. Maybe the summer would wear me out a little bit, but I absolutely love the fall and the winter in the southern United States and the southeastern part of our country. I'll even love the summer in the Gulf Shores. But where I'm going with this, Mr. Jeff Tarsi, is suck the heads. Now, you're getting that flavor, that fat, that matter out of where you rip a part of their head off and you go, and you just suck all of that goodness out of there. That sounds gross to most Americans, I would imagine. What are you doing there? And do you do it once every 15, or are you the guy that's doing it on every one?
Well, I don't do it on every one. And I'd probably be one close to 1 to every 15, and it just depends on what your tolerance is for heat. Because if that tail is spicy, then that juice that you're going to get out of that cavity in the lungs and such, that's going to be about 10x the spice associated with it. So you want to be careful if you've never done it before. You want to do it in an increment there, because it packs a lot of heat. But if you get down in South Louisiana, you got a lot of them down there. It's 1-for-1, man. Every one of them that they peel, they do it that way. And I love to be around a group of folks that I know hadn't eaten crawfish, and I can look real quick and tell how they're trying to peel them to be able to know that. And you kind of pop that head and get the juice out of it, and you get a lot of blank stares like, what the heck did he just do?
I've been that guy. I've been that Westerner before back in the day. I'm like, no, you did not. But okay, now just real quick, transitioning to the second part of your get-togethers. In the South with your batters and your breadings and your slap yo mamas and your Tony Chasseries and all of the awesome spices that Old Bay is more of an Eastern Shore, Maryland kind of seafood rub or spice. Do you need dipping sauces at a catfish boil? Do you recommend that people have tartar sauce and cocktail sauce, or is that a no-no in the South?
Well, for crawfish, absolutely not. You got to dip that crawfish tail into something. You didn't do something right cooking it. Catfish, I'm a ketchup guy if I'm eating catfish. Some people like tartar. I'm not a big tartar sauce fan, but But I like ketchup. If you got catfish on the plate and you got hush puppies, they're good in ketchup as well with it. But definitely not crawfish. Now, if you fried a crawfish tail, you might want to dip it in some kind of cocktail sauce. But man, there's no better way to eat them than boiled, in my opinion.
If everything that we just named in your Louisiana, Mississippi crawfish boil and your fish fries, 100% of the ingredients in that overall experience is brought to you by the American farmer, from the potatoes to the lemons to you name it. The sausages are from a ranch that was raised on some type of crop with their pigs or their hogs or whatever type of sausage it is. That is so cool to me that every aspect, and now you're actually having a boil with yourself and a bunch of farmers. Like, that is sustainability. That's full circle. That is what our country should and will be remembered on, in my opinion. Are you a redneck enough Southerner, Mr. Jeff Tarsi, that you will do with catfish what these guys call noodling? I have not done it. I've been challenged to. I've been afraid of it for several years now. I think it's absolutely the craziest thing that a human being could possibly put their arm through. Are you a noodler?
Well, I'm not a noodler today. I've got a lot of friends that when I was younger that did noodle. I've been in the boat while this noodling occurred. I never liked the opportunity of reaching down there and taking the chance of getting too many water moccasins down here. But man, these guys, there's no guys and girls. There's no fear among the noodling group out there, and that's amazing to me what they pull out of those stumps and holes and things like that with it. But I grew up around on a rice farm that always had an ample supply of snakes, so I was always a little bit nervous when it came to that side of it from that perspective.
I see a football helmet behind you. I assume it's Ole Miss or it's Mississippi State. I can't really make out the logo, but I think the color is it a Mississippi team?
I can assure you it's not an Ole Miss helmet. And my Ole Miss fans won't take that, and my Ole Miss friends won't take that the wrong way. I'm a Mississippi State guy. My dad went to Mississippi State. I went to Mississippi State. I put 2 kids through Mississippi State, and I got one more to put through there. And
dang it,
I love my university, and I love it because it gave me such a good background for agriculture. And anytime I go over there, and I do go over some and speak to the students, I'm always the first to tell them that I owe so much to the school for the agriculture background that it gave me. In all these schools, no matter who they are, the areas that they have expertise in and what they do to get our kids ready to go out in the world and compete, on a global basis. Take my hat off to all of them.
Well, let's end it on that note, Mr. Jeff Tarsi. If a 18-year-old boy or girl hears this and they want to go to the next level, they get all of their standard credits out of the way. What specialized course is the hot one to get in right now to go into agriculture, farming? What you do? What direction would you aim that student in today's society in 2020?
Well, first of all, I think you can never go wrong with getting as much background in financing as you can. It's a high stakes game. Okay, agriculture is a high stakes game, so understanding financing to me is very, very critical. Secondly, don't shy away, but run to technology. So if you're in college and you got a global positioning type course that you can take, satellite imagery type course, or just a course that deals with precision agriculture or digital as a whole, run and absorb yourself in those courses, because that's going to be the future of agriculture. And then last but not least, don't ever get too far away from plant science. There's so much there to learn, plant science and soils and things like that. But you can't do it all. I think it's good to have a background in a lot of those things I just mentioned. But my advice, find you an area that you really like. I mean, that you have a passion for. So if it's finance side of it, then go deep dive on the finance side of it. We need finance people out there. But if it's the agronomy side of it, or if it's a technology side of it. Find what really makes you warm inside. And that's where you need to gravitate to, because look, you need to love what you're doing. And I tell people this all day long, even people my age. I ask them, do you love what you're doing? If you don't love what you're doing, man, life's too short. Go find something that you do love and go do it. That's what that's my message. I like to work in agriculture. I'm passionate about it, and I'm thankful every day that I work in it. And when I'm not working in agriculture, I like to go and enjoy. I'm a sportsman myself, an avid outdoorsman sportsman. I love going to walk on my land and look at the turkeys, and I like to look at the deer and things like that, and just be appreciative of the environment that we live in. And let's all work together to make it better for the next generation.
Very well said. And I would also like to take this opportunity to invite myself to be in that truck with you during duck season in Arkansas or Mississippi or Louisiana, drive around after a hunt and look at ducks, scouting for the next day, visiting some of the Nutrien farming community, customers and friends that you've acquired over your experiences and tenure with the company and brand, and then maybe participating in one of these catfish fries or some other type of southern meal. It might be biscuits and gravy. It might even be what we called fried bologna that we don't see out west very often. Grits are a southern staple. I've been able, and I'm humbled to say, had some of the best that I think could ever be cooked. But again, I know that there's so many great southern cooks. Mr. Jeff, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to shaking your hand one day and hunting a duck and eating a catfish and shaking hands with an American farmer and saying thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed you, my man. That's been Mr. Jeff Tarsi, Nutrien Ag Solutions. Please support America's farmers. That's exactly how I'm going to leave it today. Say hello and say thank you to our American farmers. No matter where you're at in this world, they're out there. I appreciate your time, Mr. Jeff Tarsi. Thank you for the partnership, Nutrien Ag Solutions and Gerber Gear. This is Chad Belding. This has been another episode of the Fowl Life Podcast. Tom, hit that button, please. This is 2 a.m. Logic. The song is called My Fowl Life. Y'all take care.